Hello and welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The Parliamentary Committee on Finance has recommended GST rate reduction for health insurance products, retail policies for senior citizens, among others. The committee has also sought that the 100 crore capital requirement be removed to encourage smaller players to enter the insurance sector. The panel has also said that the Ayushman Bharat scheme can be strengthened by allowing the missing middle to participate. The missing middle here refers to the percentage of the population who are not poor enough to be covered by government-subsidized schemes, but not rich enough to afford private health insurance. The panel added that an appropriate roadmap to strengthen the financial conditions of 4 public sector companies must be established. A report by a noted agency has projected that India's insurance sector is expected to record fastest growth among the G20 countries. Total premium is expected to rise at an average rate of 7.1% in the next 4 years. I caught up with Jayant Sinha, chairperson of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance, and I began by asking him about the reasons for under-penetration of the insurance business in India.
As you know, over the last decade or so, under Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji's leadership, we have progressed very rapidly in multiple aspects of our overall financial system. Our banking system has been reformed in many different ways. It's very, very strong right now. Our asset management and wealth management businesses are doing extremely well. The fintech industry has really taken off, particularly in payments, as you know. And so now it's time that we take the insurance sector and strengthen and reform it as well, so that we can really provide the insurance products and services that our economy needs right now. Of course, as you correctly pointed out, Parikshit, even though the industry is growing rapidly, we are still very under-penetrated. So the Standing Committee on Finance over the last many months has been talking to all the various stakeholders, the regulators, industry participants, consumers, investors. We've been talking to all stakeholders to understand how should we develop a roadmap for the insurance sector to really progress and deepen its penetration in India.
Right. Let me ask you about the need to rationalize GST on insurance products, which is 18% at present. Which segments or which products under the insurance sector you feel make the cut for a rationalization of GST?
Parikshit, the Standing Committee on Finance in its comprehensive report has looked at both the demand side, the supply side, and overall regulation and taxing as well in this very important sector. And when it comes to taxation, we have found that the GST rate that we have, 18%, which basically started from the service tax, which was, of course, as you know, 15, 16% and has now gone to 18%, is a tax rate that we do need to think about, particularly for certain insurance products like health insurance. So health insurance is very important. It protects people. It enables them to be able to get necessary support when they need it, particularly when they're facing life-threatening illnesses. And so we think that for some of these very important protections that our families need, it's important to think about what the right rate for GST should be.
Right. On the issue of allowing newer players, smaller niche players to enter so that a greater area, more geographical areas can be covered by the insurance sector, how important is it that the capital requirement of 100 crores be reduced?
I think it's very important. And as I said, we looked at both demand as well as supply side issues to be able to have more insurance products and services in the marketplace. And when you look at the supply side, there are 2 or 3 very important measures that are required to be able to broaden and deepen the sets of products and services. One you correctly pointed out is that we have a license requirement of 100 crores to become an insurance company. We think particularly for micro insurance products, that license fee can be reduced and it might even be restricted to certain geographic areas, as you point out. And that way we can create some niche insurance providers that don't have such high capital requirements for getting started. Similarly, we also believe that a composite license on the supply side is very important so that we can provide life products, we can provide health products, we can provide general products. A composite license would make a very big difference. And third, we think that there needs to be further standardization on micro insurance product. So the Jeevan Jyoti Bima, the Jeevan Suraksha Bima, both of which were standardized and introduced by the government, have been extremely successful. The Atal Pension Yojana also has been extremely successful. These are really, really outstanding micro insurance products. We need more of these micro insurance products. Maybe there is some category of health that can be created as well. Maybe there are some life products that can be further expanded. But we need these micro insurance products. We need composite licenses, and we need it easier for niche providers to get in the market, and that will increase the supply of insurance products and services, particularly for those who can't afford some of the more complex and more valuable insurance products.
Right. The committee has noted, Mr. Sinha, that a composite license could provide further impetus to the insurance sector. Now, this has been a long-standing demand of the industry. In your deliberations with the Finance Ministry, with the regulator, with industry, what are some of the reservations or roadblocks in implementing this?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of legislative work that is required. Obviously, the insurance acts will have to be amended to enable a composite license to be delivered. Right now, they are in different categories. So we will have to amend the legislation, the laws that pertain to that. And of course, we have to build the regulatory capacity and competence to be able to look at composite insurance companies. That being said, we think that it will be very attractive for individual customers, because they can get all-in-one products, they can get a range of products all from one single insurance provider, which will enable us to broaden coverage and make this much more accessible for people. So we think a composite license is a very good thing. It'll require some work as far as the government is concerned and as far as legislation is concerned. But by and large, what we found is that stakeholders are very much in support of a composite license.
Right. Allowing the missing middle to participate. You said that Ayushman Bharat scheme has done very well. It can be further strengthened. Why is it important to include the missing middle? What will possibly be the cost involved of such an exercise?
So universal health insurance through Ayushman Bharat has been a profoundly important step for India's social security architecture. It's extremely popular. It's been extremely successful. But it is, of course, targeted more to the lower sections of society, not so much for the middle class. Now, again, when we consulted with multiple stakeholders, consumer associations and others, they also said that they would like to be able to get the Ayushman Bharat coverage. Perhaps instead of 5 lakhs, it could be 10 lakhs or even 20 lakhs. But available through the same kind of systems that have been created for Ayushman Bharat. Of course, there will be a premium that middle-class households will have to pay for that. But with that premium, they can get this kind of coverage, which will ease a very big burden that they have and provide them a really good health safety net, which the middle class also requires. And that's why we coined this term of the missing middle.
Right. Now, in terms of improving the financial conditions of public sector general insurance companies, you have called for an appropriate strategic roadmap so that all remedial steps can be taken. What are some of the major issues that you've seen? And if I ask you for top 2 or 3 remedial measures which are needed, what would those be?
So the Honorable Finance Minister has done an extraordinary job of strengthening our banking sector. And our banking sector has gone through 3 or 4 major reform measures which have been very successful and have really strengthened our overall banking system. These are the kinds of measures that we should consider for our public insurance companies as well. And that is why we need to come up with some kind of a policy roadmap that will enable us to strengthen our public general insurance companies. So there are 3 or 4 steps that should be considered. How and in what sequence and to which companies, That is precisely what the Ministry of Finance, along with the regulator, should work through. But the 3 or 4 important steps that we should consider, some of which have already been initiated. For example, we have already strengthened the balance sheets of these public sector insurance companies by putting more capital into them. So recapitalization is one measure. Number two, streamlining in terms of cost efficiencies, in ensuring that they can provide competitive products and services. That's required. Number three, there may be consolidation that could be helpful. Of course, we've consolidated some of the banks, and that has made a difference. And then number four, if there are ways in which some of these insurance companies can have more of their ownership through the public markets and less so from the government, that also should be considered. So divestment of some form should also be considered. So these are the kinds of measures that have been followed as far as the banking system is concerned. They definitely need to be considered as far as the public sector insurance companies are also concerned. And they have a very important role to play, whether we look at general insurance policies, whether we look at reinsurance, whether we look at catastrophic insurance. In all of these cases, the government insurance companies have a very, very important role to play. So we must absolutely strengthen them.
Right. You've also called for an ombudsman that the IRDAI should establish on the lines of RBI to address consumer grievances. While conducting this review, what was the biggest grievance that consumers across the country face that you feel needs to be addressed urgently through such an ombudsman?
So there are two very big consumer issues that have emerged through our hearings. Number one is claims processing and the time taken on claims. Many times claims are disallowed and then you have to fight the insurance company and so on. For small companies, small enterprises, and for individuals, this becomes very, very difficult to fight a big insurance company. So we need an ombudsperson that can enable you to get your legitimate claims settled. So claim settlement is a big area of concern. Second, there are a lot of unclaimed policies where, again, it's been difficult to figure out who the beneficiary is for some of these unclaimed policies. So we've also recommended an unclaimed policy portal that will allow the resolution of these kinds of claim issues as well. So for all of these purposes, like the RBI has done so very well, which is to create an ombudsperson and an ombudsperson system which allows fair and quick resolution of many of these consumer issues. We believe that this would be required in the insurance sector as well. And here again, IRDA has taken some very good steps through the Bima Sugam portal. So we think we need to strengthen the Bima Sugam portal. We need an ombudsperson to provide some regulatory oversight of all of this. And we think just like we have in many other industries. And for example, we did this for aviation, where we created a passenger charter. We think it's important to create a customer charter for the insurance sector as well, so that there's time-bound settlement of claims, that there is an expectation how swiftly issues will get resolved, that there's a resolution process, and so on. So we think a consumer charter, just like we have in the aviation industry, is very much required.
Right. And my final question, sir, though it's not connected to this report, it would be on the regulatory concerns that have been flagged by RBI with regard to Paytm. This issue is not under the purview of the Parliamentary Committee on Finance. But as the chairperson, do you think there are certain lessons from this exercise?
RBI, of course, is taking appropriate action, and I think that action has been a measured response. Obviously, they are now very, very adept as far as supervision is concerned, as far as their oversight is concerned, and they followed a staged process of flagging concerns and ensuring that consumers are protected. And all of this is built on the experience of the last several years, where we've dealt with many of these kinds of situations, compliance issues with multiple different banks, with NBFCs. And so now the RBI has become quite skillful and quite adept at dealing with this and making sure that depositors and merchants are protected. And it is that if there is a bank that doesn't have the right compliance, the right controls, it is the bank that has to resolve this quickly. But at all costs, consumers, depositors, and merchants are protected.
And time for a short break, but don't go anywhere. More news on the other side. Stay tuned.